So what then should we be thinking about? Okay, we're going to sort of take a look at some principles and things that we've been talking about and thinking about in the broad area of special education for a while now. And I'm going to talk about how these relate to some of the things we're going to talk about today in terms of teaching. So the first thing is self-determination. You may have heard this term before. The people who are self-determined, who have self-determination skills, are people who can make choices for themselves. They're people who can make decisions about their actions. And when they make decisions about their actions, they can think about what the consequences might be for those actions. So they can kind of make plans and think, well, if I do this way, this is the probable outcome. And if I do something differently, that's the probable outcome. We all do this from one day to the next, right? I mean, I often do it in the morning when I think about snoozing my alarm clock. If I snooze my alarm clock, I might stay in bed a little longer than I should, and then I might be late for whatever it is that I'm supposed to be doing, right? Less of an issue during the pandemic when I'm really not going anywhere, but occasionally I have a morning Zoom meeting I have to be apparently dressed for, right? Setting goals. It's really important that we set goals for ourselves, and that's part of self-determination, being able to know what you want for yourself. And certainly children don't do a lot of goal setting for themselves, but as people move into adolescence and young adulthood, they start making goals about what they want to do for a job, if they want to go to post-secondary education, what they might want to study, who they might want to date or have relationships with, what kinds of activities they want to do in their free time. So people can set all kinds of goals for themselves, and that's a really important skill to have. So we want to make sure that we're teaching individuals those kinds of skills. Self-determination involves having some self-awareness and being able to recognize one's own abilities, okay? So being able to know what you're good at. That helps you identify jobs that you might be successful in or other kinds of activities that might go well for you, okay? And then finally, and especially important for individuals with disabilities, is the ability to advocate for oneself. And so that's also part of self-determination, being able to recognize what your needs are and then know how to go about advocating to get those needs met, or advocating if there are issues around, perhaps discrimination, and recognizing that you are being discriminated against and being able to engage in specific activities or actions that address those kinds of things, okay? So self-determination is an important sort of big skill area that we want to be thinking about. We also want to be thinking about independence, and again, we're all not, entirely independent. We all lean on one another for various things. We all work together to achieve various outcomes. We're mostly interdependent. But by independent, we're talking about, being able to participate in day-to-day life and do the things that you need to do with the fewest supports necessary. And again, some individuals are going to need more significant supports, whereas other individuals might need more intermittent supports. That's fine, right? But being as independent as possible. So if a person is able to do something for themselves, we really want to encourage them to do that, as opposed to doing everything for them and not providing them with opportunities to develop those skills and engage in things that they actually could do, okay? So that's an important area we want to think about. And as we work through later this morning and this afternoon, we'll be thinking about ways in which we can identify activities that your children, your youth, the adults that you support could do, and how we can move them towards independence in those kinds of activities. There's also a principle of normalization, right? And this principle of normalization came out of the deinstitutionalization movement. It's often misconstrued as that we're trying to make people normal, and that's not what we're talking about here. The principle of normalization is about providing individuals who have disabilities the same opportunities to engage in the same kinds of activities, using the same materials, in the same environments as their same age peers, right? So this really came out of that movement when individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities who had been housed in large institutions with hundreds of people for decades were starting to move out into the community. And it was the idea that we're not just going to move them out into the community and place them in mini institutions where they will stay hidden. The idea is they're adults, they go out into the regular community and they participate in activities alongside everyone else, okay? So they're included in the same kinds of things. So we want to make sure that we're providing those opportunities. We also want to think about the principle of functionality. And there was a guy involved in the inclusion movement in the US, in the deinstitutionalization movement in the US, Dr. Lou Brown, and he talked about functionality a whole lot. And he sort of had this statement where, you know, to be a functional skill, it has to be a skill that if you cannot do it for yourself, you will have to have someone come and do it for you. That's a functional skill. So, you know, think about if you don't know how to use the toilet independently, well, then you're going to have someone come and do that for you. That's a functional skill. If you don't know how to dress yourself, you're going to have someone come and do that for you. That's a functional skill. If you don't know how to feed yourself, or if you don't know how to make a meal for yourself, you're going to have someone come and do it for you. That's a functional skill, right? Now, if I can't build with Lego, do I have to have someone come and build with Lego or build Lego for me? I mean, if I really want Lego, sure, but I'm not going to die if somebody doesn't come and build me Lego. Not a functional skill, okay? So the functional skills are like things that absolutely have to be done, and if you can't do it for yourself, somebody else is going to have to come and do it for you. So we really do want to be thinking about functional skills. And I'm not saying that we should exclude academic skills and other kinds of skills, because those are important as well. But it is really important to be thinking about, can my child take care of all aspects of toileting? Can my child do all hygiene-related tasks? Can my child, as my child sort of gets older, make simple meals? Can my child manage bedtime? Can my child take care of a home environment? Can my child get safely from point A to point B to be able to, say, go to work? These are the kinds of things to start thinking about and targeting, right? Oftentimes when I'm working with older individuals, so individuals who are transitioning to adulthood, or even when I've been called in to work with individuals who are adults, an area often of challenge is this area of functional skills. And I come in to find that no one has taught functional skills to these individuals. So we have someone who's older but isn't independent in the washroom, or can't manage hygiene tasks, or can't take care of, you know, making simple meals. And so they have to have support for all of these things. It's much easier to teach these skills when kids are younger than when they're older, and maybe they've had decades of being accustomed to someone else doing everything for them, okay? So none of these things happen magically, right? It isn't magic. It does take some work. Entering adulthood for everyone is challenging, right? Often I'm going through campus at CapU and I'll see, when we were on campus at CapU, a little sandwich board by the student services area that says, you know, they're having an Adulting 101 workshop where they're, you know, teaching young adults about some of the things that they haven't learned yet that are really important. So it does take instruction, and it does take time to teach and develop these kinds of skills that you need in order to be an independent adult and a self-determined adult, okay? So we do have to focus our time and attention on that. And then we need to think about the time that it often takes for individuals with ASD, individuals with other developmental disabilities, to actually develop skills. Okay, and some of these individuals require more time than typically developing kids do. And so that means that we probably need to start working on developing some of those skills a bit earlier than we might otherwise, right? So we should be thinking about these kinds of things as early as possible, okay? Because we want to make sure that by the time your children reach adulthood, that they have as many of these skills as they can possibly acquire, right? If you're not yet in the realm of accessing adult services, you may not be aware that there are often significantly fewer services for adults than there are for kids. I'm not suggesting that that's a good thing or a right thing, but it is in many circumstances what we have today. So there are fewer focused supports or intensive supports that provide instruction to adults. So we do want to make sure that we take advantage of any support services and time that we have for providing more intensive instruction earlier on. We take advantage of that when we have it and teach those skills so that by the time a person reaches adulthood, they've acquired as much as they possibly can, knowing that they may not have this same kind of services and supports when they're adults. So the parent's role then in teaching, right? Teaching isn't something that's only done by teachers, right? Although people often think that, right? Teaching is something that happens at school, and that's not true. Learning doesn't only happen in schools. It's really important to recognize and remember for yourselves as parents that you are your child's first teacher, and you are your child's most consistent teacher. You spend the most time than any other person, right? By the time your child is 18, 19, 20, 21, you've spent more hours with your child than any other one person. And you have ongoing opportunities day in and day out, and I know it feels like a day in, day out slog, but you have opportunities day in and day out to teach skills as part of daily life. So I'm not talking about writing lesson plans. I'm not talking about sitting at a table and, doing homework. I'm talking about when you're making a meal, when your child's getting dressed, when you're doing things in your home in terms of home upkeep. How can you involve your child and use those things as teaching opportunities, okay? Benjamin Franklin once said, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." And I think that this is especially important for children with autism, developmental and intellectual disabilities especially. It's important for all children. It's important for all of us. But especially when we're talking about children with ASD or intellectual and developmental disabilities who often have difficulty learning just from observation or just from being told to do something. We're talking about children who often need repeated practice in the natural environment, in real settings, to kind of go, oh, okay, I see how we do this. I see how it works. Let me practice it. And they need lots and lots and lots of repetition in order to become really fluent at skills. We want to make sure that we're involving kids, okay? And often one of the things that I encounter when I'm talking to parents is they're telling me that they have things they have to do in the house and their child won't go away and occupy himself, right? And so they're trying to cook dinner or do laundry or clean the house, and their child won't stay occupied independently. And certainly independent play skills, independent leisure skills, those are important. But I also bring up, well, would it be possible for your child to participate in the same activity that you're participating in and do it with you? Can your child help you with some aspect of meal preparation? Can your child set the table? Could your child help you sort the socks if you're doing laundry? Could your child run the Swiffer while you're vacuuming and dust the tabletops? Is your child going to be really good at it in the beginning? No. Are you going to have to provide some direction? Yes. But oftentimes parents are having to stop and redirect their child to some other task while they're trying to do what they're doing. Bring your child into the same activity. Chances are, at the very least, you're not going to expend any more effort and you might expend less. And then at the same time, your child is learning some of those skills. So that's what we're going to talk about today, are some ways that you might start to think about embedding your child into activities that are already happening in your home.